All right, and we are back at Cosmic Reunion, 4th Density, and it really has been this, like the snowball. We got it going yesterday, and it just felt so big, and so I thought maybe coming in this morning for the start of the day, we were going to have to like recreate the snowball, you know, that whole imagery of getting it rolling and it just gets bigger and bigger. But what I'm really feeling today is I walked in here and I'm like, wow, that snowball is as big as it is yesterday, and now we're just adding to it. And so really for us to focus on this energetic and really pulling this together, we have had some amazing, incredible presenters yesterday and already today, and there's a full lineup from this point on, but I do have an announcement to make. There are DVDs available of each of the speakers, and those DVDs are $10, but you know what? There's more than that, because you're going to want more than one DVD, because these speakers are far too amazing for you just to pick one speaker to get a DVD from. So there's a special of 3 DVDs for $20. All right, well now when we're talking about that, I think there's going to be, 11 DVDs. So what do you think? A complete set of everything to really lock in all this information? $50 for the complete set of DVDs for this conference, which is like 11 DVDs. So just file that away, because again, I know you're going to want more of this information, and hearing it once sometimes just isn't quite enough, particularly with Laura's information. You'll want to get back into that. So it is, this is fun for me. I mean, it really is. This is hardly, it feels like work or responsibility. It just feels fun. And part of it is that I'm getting to connect with all of these speakers and presenters. And I'm getting to know them a little bit better, a little bit more behind the scenes, to really tap into the energy. And so many of the speakers I've already had contact with, including our next speaker, Robert Perala. And Robert and I spoke last week on the phone. He's up in Northern California. And I just wanted to kind of check in with him. Robert and I, our paths cross at many different events. He's a major player out there and speaking at all these events. And one of the things he said to me in our conversation was that each day he says to himself, how do I serve? And this is so vitally important right now, because we're leaving a paradigm that's about me, I. And we're shifting very rapidly into a paradigm that's about us, that's about not service to self, but service to others and service to the collective. And this man lives that. And what I love about it is he is very aware of his impact in each moment and how that works and how energy can affect people in a most positive way. So he is an author. He has written 2 books that are available: The Divine Blueprint, Roadmap for the New Millennium, and The Divine Architect, The Art of Living and Beyond. He is engaging, he is personable, he is all heart, and he has a most lovely partner whose energy we all love and appreciate, Helen, and it's so nice that she is here with us also today. And I understand that Robert has just launched his new website, thedivineintelligence.com. So you will definitely want to make sure to visit that. But right now, it's my honor to introduce Robert Perala.
Well, good morning. It's great to see all of you on Sunday morning and getting a chance to come down to Southern California and talk about spiritual principles, metaphysics, sciences, the esoteric. More importantly, why are you here? What brought you here? I really am a firm believer that we are all brought here by divine guidance. You see, we could have been going to an Amway meeting or an MLM meeting or what have you for some product, which is lovely, but something intrinsic in your spirit brought you here that you want to know a deeper calling. What is this calling that we're having? What is it that calls us to not only serve here, but to flourish, to grow, to perhaps touch, move, and inspire so many other people. That's really my job. If I was going to describe my job, I would say I'm a spiritual reporter more than anything else. I find phenomenal aspects of the human experience, and then I write those down, and I share this with people. So you might see me at the Center for Spiritual Living or other places with the clipboard and everything. I'm always making notes and everything. I know they make jokes, and they say, he's always with his clipboard making notes and everything because he says he's going back to his home planet soon, and he doesn't want to miss anything. And so that's what I'm about. I love people, and more importantly, I like to see them grow and reach their potentials. I'll tell you a little bit about myself before we get into the whole presentation so you know who yacked at you today. I have a phenomena that's been following me since I was a very young boy, and this is the phenomena of apparitions. These are men and women like you and I who have benefited from greater time and greater knowledge. At one time, they lived on the earth just like you and I. They finished their material life incarnation, and then we move back on to what we call the interlife, or where you reside most of the time. You might say that your soul and spirit take a sojourn into the material world for a time, so it can learn lessons in mastery, physical mastery, relationship mastery, emotional mastery, which is a fantastic thing for an ego like mine. However, more importantly, then we move on to the other side. Well, that committee of people really is changing all the time. You might say that you're walking with a team. This team around you is largely made up of discarnates. They're made up of men and women that you might not remember. You knew them before you were born. And here now you almost see them as some sort of scientific or mythological or highly speculative issue that may or may not be in your life. You are actually walking with a committee. That committee is extraterrestrials. They are the angelics, the seraphim, the cherubim, the B'nai Elohim. There are many, many factions of what we have here. And so, really what I'm about here today is to show you a little bit about the divine intelligence, how that surrounds us. What is that? How do we tap into it? If you're not walking with your team quite yet, you need to start walking with your team. You need to get in touch with these people. And you'll, as you sit and learn to meditate and do affirmative prayer, you will learn more and more about what these people or these beings really, really are. Because they want to get to know you, because they see they love you very much. There's no question in my mind about that. If you knew who walked beside you, it would bring tears to your eyes. If you really knew the support team that was there, you would be astonished and amazed and moved beyond your wildest dreams. But for now, we walk in the material plane, and we must learn our lessons. So these apparitions used to appear to me, and still do, when I was a young boy. They would appear to me, and I didn't have any control over it. We didn't even know what it was. You know, I would come down and tell my mom, we had visitors last night, and she said, no, we didn't. I said, yes, we did. And she said, no, we didn't. I said, yes, we did. She said, what are you talking about? I said, well, you must have seen them. You know, there were men and women. There were some children here last night. It was very unusual. You can slightly see through them. She goes, what are you talking about? And so there began to, you know, my mother was very supportive of what I was about. She was largely very supportive, and she was, you know, in those days, in 1966, they used to hold seances, and they wanted to turn your whole family over to, you know, some patriarchal authority that would take out these kind of new age ideas and everything that, you know, you weren't to be poking holes into the universe and asking for any assistance out there, because only God will support you, and that's true. However, there's this whole network, and they're all on the side going, you're neglecting us. We gave you all this, and you're neglecting us and everything. You know, what's going on here? You know, we're the shakers and the movers along with you. They're your support team. And so I would explain what was happening, and then eventually they took me to some doctors, and they said, what is this? What are you saying? Tell me truthfully, what is this? And I would say, well, explain to them how they were appearing. And they appeared to me in what's called the hypnagogic state. The hypnagogic state, you're in beta now, so you're thinking, you're hearing me, you're hearing the sound of people or the birds or whatever it is. And then when you start to fall asleep, you fall into just what's called hypnagogic. That's that little mid-window that you pass through when you're falling asleep or when you're just becoming awake. and you would be nodding off. You know how you're like nodding off, and suddenly you can hear the clinking of the glasses or people talking. You're kind of daydreaming is what you're doing, and you kind of bounce into that, and then you might fall asleep and you go drop down deep into delta, right? Or, you might bounce back out into beta, and you'll be more awake and go, oh, and somebody's looking at you going, excuse me, Barbara, did you hear what I'm saying? Are you present and listening? And Barbara's like, oh, what, excuse me? Like that. So that hypnagogic window is where the third eye, the ajna center as it calls, for me, stays open. So I get to see what these apparitions are about. And we were amazed. So then from there, it's been a 35-year research into the mystery schools, the esoteric sciences, the malleable realities, personal growth, anecdotes for living. And this is where I come to report to you those intrinsic things that move our spirit so we can reach our potential. So if you're not in touch with your team right now, this is a great time and a great place to learn that and be a part of that. And it's my job and it's my pleasure to be able to present that to you, the divine intelligence. Okay, so the divine intelligence is surrounding us all. It's actually quite interesting because today we're going to learn about what that means to us. We're learning a little bit about the origin of the soul, mapping the divine blueprint, the laws of right relation, willingness, and intent, all kinds of things. And this new video blog that's going up, you'll see it very soon, shows you a number of things about how the operative forces work around you, so you can get familiar with that. We are all actually walking through a myriad of interesting and different things. We are all actually architects. We are builders of the soul. In Divine Architect, we were saying, Tony Stubbs, who's now passed on, we were now saying that people here, we're coming here as builders of the soul. We were living the art of living, and we were looking beyond ourselves and within ourselves. And we found all kinds of interesting things like that were being given to us, and I was very fortunate to have people like Tony Robbins and John Edward and Drunvalo Melchizedek, Greg Braden. All of them were very lovely in supporting me in the material that I could present to you today and say, yes, we agree with this. That's very nice, very humbling. All the while, we are walking with a divine blueprint. We see actually that in essence, the origin of the soul is made up and traced through astrology, Vedic astrology, modern-day astrology. There's a number of different kinds of astrology that trace the origin of the soul. So we find that we have certain attributes that we come in with: strengths, weaknesses, what you need to work on, what you're going to focus on. And also, if you were to look at the karmic grid line, which is really interesting, the karmic grid line, everybody wonders, well, do I have karma? Do I have bad karma? Do I have good karma? No, the word karma simply translates as action. It doesn't mean you necessarily have good karma or bad karma, or, it doesn't mean like the patriarchals say that there's no such thing as karma. It's either you learn or you burn, and that is your choice. And that's not what's happening here either. No, it translates as action. So in that, we find we have an interesting plethora of information with our astrological chart. And so it's an outline for living. And if you saw what it looks like, I could metaphorically tell you, imagine you had vertical lines, right? And you are horizontal lines, and then you have vertical lines, right? And it forms a checkerboard, does it not? And everywhere where there's the apex, where the lines meet, like this, those are the unavoidable things that are scheduled. There are events that are scheduled. It doesn't mean you'll meet them all. It means you maybe marry here, and as you travel along one path, you might get a job here, and you might move up to another one here and find that you've met your mate here. But the space in between is where no one knows what's going to happen. This is the free will zone. This is where even the angels don't even know what's going to happen. They're up there taking bets almost, going, I think he's going to choose her. It's between her and her and her. Which one? Which one? See, I told you so. He would choose her. No one knows in the free will zone. This is where you are at. You're actually on a free will planet where all these things can, you can choose. That's what free will is. To choose between what serves creation, what takes away from creation. What serves the self, what takes away from the self. What serves the creator and what takes away from the creator, etc. So along the way, let's play the reincarnation game. Hey, I'm your host, I'm Robert Perala, and you're playing the reincarnation game. Souls can be reluctant to reincarnate. A lot of people get on the brakes immediately when they find out that they're going to come here. You actually look at the time zone you're going to come into, the geographic location you're going to come into, the certain bloodline and family you're going to come into, and you look at all these things, and you actually have a choice somewhat in your own birth process. You're on the other side. We know this from near-death experience studies and research institutes, etc. We know this. Along the way, we also have other things. We have, the interlife. This is what I was explaining before. The interlife is that incarnation in between the material world. That's where you reside most of the time. Actually, you're just taking a sojourn into the material plane for an interim time to learn all these lessons in mastery. And so it's a phenomenal and interesting thing that we find. We know much more today than we did before regarding about where we come from. We're learning about stellar heritage, that we're not only just, well, I'm not just half Finnish and half English from Great Britain. No, I'm part Syrian, I'm part Pleiadian, I'm part Orion even, perhaps, who knows. I took a lot of flack on this from coast to coast when I said in the lost books of the Bible, do you know that it actually says that you are descendants of the house of Pleiades and the house of Sirius and the house of Orion? And I asked a conservative minister one day after a Sunday service, I said, what do you think that means? I was, kind of curious. And he said, well, I think that was near Damascus somewhere at the time. I said, Damascus? I said, no, I think they're talking about a declaration on the stars. And so when we found in these research institutes that we're tracing the origin of the soul, we find that people could describe a paradigm that ain't here. It's not here, and it's much more expanded. And then we find out that they actually choose to come into a denser aspect. People say, well, I remember there's an old lady went up, I don't want to go to hell. All I want to do is, be the good person that I was meant to be and everything else and do as I'm told. And which we don't really do anyway, do we? And so she says, I don't want to go to hell. I said, you don't want to go to hell? She says, no, I don't want to go to hell. I said, then don't step one more inch right or left. She says, why? I says, because you're here, honey bun. This is actually a warlike planet. You are experiencing the highest and the lowest, the densest and the lightest. And you've come here because you are getting ready to graduate to a slightly higher expression. Now, not everybody will understand when this higher expression happens or how it happens. There's a lot of conjecture. We'll talk about that today. Not everybody will understand quite what's happened. How many people here feel there's something going on here? There's something, that my dreams are deeper, yes? Your dreams are a little deeper. I'm more sensitive to what people say. I'm more sensitive to the atmosphere. Holy cow, it's North Korea with a 28-year-old? Wait a minute, and the economy, I owe how much? $16 trillion? That translates to $45,300 per person. You can pay Tim Geithner, you want your secretary-treasurer in Washington, D.C. Probably won't. And the world's gone mad. To a certain degree, the world's gone mad. But we don't have to do that. Our job is to be centered. So when you're looking at all this, you say, well, this is the earth paradigm. Oh, my goodness, not all your soul incarnates. How many people here have said, when you get up, I go, I don't really feel all here today. I don't know what's the matter with me. No, you're actually floating in and out of your body. Actually, part of you is hovering. If you could see it in a bar, in a pub, right? You've had a few drinks. You would see that a lot of people are hovering over each other. And when they're hovering over each other, they're subject to entities that can attach themselves, resident entities, and others that attach themselves to fields. And this is why people suddenly change personality also, because their blood content level can't handle alcohol, and suddenly, all of a sudden, they went from being charming and wonderful to looking at it going, you think you can take me? What? No, I didn't say that. No, I heard you say that. No, I didn't say that. That's them talking. That's them talking. So stay in your bodies, you'll get better results. When you come here, not all your soul incarnates, but you do actually look at the historical period you're going to come into, what cultural conditions you're going to come into, what gender you're going to be. I know we get to be both of them nowadays. That's lovely. Social standing, you get twice as much, You get social standing. And then all of a sudden we look at astrology and everything. So that's a little bit about who you are. But there's one catch. There's always some kind of catch, is there not? When you write a contract or agree to a contract to come to something as wonderful as this experience, they might tell you something like this right before you leave. The question I want to ask you today is, do you remember where you were standing the day before you were born? Where were you standing the day before you were born? You were standing with this loving committee. You were standing with these lovely people. And they may say something like this. You see, you're not going to remember us. You're not going to remember this place. You're going to go to sleep. And when you wake up, you'll be on the other side. And you will not remember this at all. And eventually you'll deny that we even exist. And eventually you'll find that the game is afoot. Your job as a soul, as a spirit, is to make your way back to the reconnection of where you came from, maybe in the first place, and that committee that loves you beyond your wildest dreams. Then you'll get the support. And then you find out there is no death. You actually merge the veils between the material and the non-material. And all of a sudden, you can now be way-showers and explain to people in maybe more desperate situations. There's no more noble work in a lot of ways than to be with someone who's getting to make their transition. Trust me, if I asked who my best teachers are, and there's great teachers out there, I've had the best coaches that there is. You know, guys like Tony Robbins, Dr. David Bruner, there's so many of them. But if I really was going to pick my best teachers, it would be my hospice patients. They tell me what they would do different if they would turn the clock back, if they could turn the clock back. And I listen because my clock is turned back. And I think, yes, I'm listening. I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm not going to waste my time or my life. I'm here called by the highest. I'm here to be a part of the way-showers, the transition team. What a fantastic opportunity. Thank you for showing me this today. I would have missed it. Or we could be part of the Worthless Codependence Club. It's your choice. I don't know. You know, sitting on the couch, watching reruns of Baywatch, eating Cheetos. Not a bad idea, but it's actually not as much serving as you might choose, right? So that's where that's at. You have this plethora and this team. And then you come here, right, and you actually watch yourself being born. You actually hover over yourself and going, my goodness. And if you wonder how dazzling it really is, suddenly you watch yourself coming out of the womb and you go, that's me! That's me! Wow! And they're all applauding you and they're going, you're doing it, you're doing it. You're actually going to the material plane. We welcome you. Yes, sir. You know? And so, then all of a sudden you're met by a masked man. You're dazzled by the bright lights. You're suddenly turned upside down. And then you're spanked! And they wonder why I have a little bit of emotional trouble once in a while and why I have to see some other help. And my therapist knows the best and everything. I said, well, you know, it's so rough in the material plane and everything. You know, there's some people here that aren't acting right. Maybe it's me. I don't know. You know, I was raised in the nut house. I like John Lennon. He said it best. I was raised in the nut house, you know. And that's the way it kind of feels here. But your emotional mastery and the fact that you showed up here today, that means more than anything. The fact that Neil and Ilya and Sol brought you here today, what a magnificent opportunity. What an incredible Easter this can be and is. So there you are, and you make your way. Of course, you grow up into the family, and you learn identity, material things. This is mommy, this is daddy. You're in the what Carl Jung says, the I am phase. And you learn all these things, and then you become, you actually fall into what we call the form. You fall into the form, and you think this is completely real. And then eventually you deny all that other stuff, all this committee and all these people, that's some kind of new age thing. Or they say, you know what, I know people have said, you know, well, Rob, you know, it sounds like you're kind of into that Eastern thing or something. I said, well, where do you think the Bible was written? In California? It was written in the East. Or you're into that new age thing or something. I said, which way did you think we were going? You know, we're always moving and renewing ourselves. Look at nature. Everything is renewing. You're always going into the new age. Today, this moment's part of the new age. You're moving into this new aspect of yourself. So, who's the committee? Who are my favorite people? Who are the people I call on? Besides the seraphim, the cherubim, the B'nai Elohim, of course, the Creator God itself, divine feminine, divine masculine, etc. I have some people that I come from, and these people are your friends. Meet the Pleiadians. The Pleiadians are featured here at the Divine Intelligence. Join the conversation. That's the website. And the Pleiadians are our kin, our ancestors. These galactic time jumpers are just like us with one difference. They have benefited from greater time and greater knowledge. While looking just like humans, they can also be blue in color or even reptilian. This is why you're seeing this reptilian aspect. You've seen it in Egypt with various things that the crocodile had, and the Lord styled a man or woman with that. The fact is, they shapeshift is one major difference. These wonderful beings are men and women like you and I. But by living longer and being attuned to universal spiritual principles, they're able to move at will between the material and the non-material plane. This is why I see them in the middle of the night sometimes, and I've seen them in flight uniforms. I've seen beautiful females that, oh my goodness, almost as beautiful as my wife. Wow, pretty nice. But the Bible makes actually many references to our galactic brother and sisterhood, this can be found in the lost books of Job, as I said. You are descendants of the house of Pleiades, the house of Sirius, and the house of Orion, etc. But the Pleiadians are the most interesting thing, and if I was going to pick somebody who I think called it best out of all the books that we were out there looking at, in metaphysical bookstores and online, there's many great architects, there's so many. I mean, Ernest Holmes, Emmett Fox, Greg Braden in the modern day times, so many others. But actually, Barbara Marciniak actually is remarkably accurate. Read Path of Empowerment, remarkable book, because it has the personal growth, the anecdotes for living, shows you how the committee works, why they're here, what they're here for, and why you're a part of them and important to them. Pretty cool, huh? So, who are these people? Well, let's look at points in time. There are those who hunt points in time, whose sole ambition is to locate places in time and enter into them. They are by profession time jumpers. These time jumpers enter into specific periods where the evolutionary process calls for an assistance. Or a deepening. The energy that is coming into planet Earth right now is massive. For many humans, it is unrecognizable, yet many suspect that something is happening. The speeding of time, the rushing of motion, the collapse of many systems, ideologies, the patriarchal and political systems, the financial markets, and religious institutions and beliefs, to name a few. Does that sound kind of familiar? Am I alone in this? Does it feel like everything's under siege? Because nothing is going to remain the same. We're sort of waking up, and we're growing up, and we're looking at some of this. You can imagine the youth. Do you know that in the youth, over 60% of the population in Iran is 35 and under? And it makes them, the clerics and people like that, very nervous, because they want lattes, they want Starbucks, they want television and Facebook, they want what the West has. And they're now waking up and going, this is not the way it's supposed to be. I'm not picking on them in some ways. It sounds like I am, but I'm not picking on them entirely. And what I'm saying is that it's a metaphor for the old world that they're kind of leaving, which many are. Many want to escape from North Korea. Many want to get out of the oppression in these other places and say, no, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. And you claim that there's somebody on the other side of this telephone that's giving you divine guidance and putting these people in power. There's no one on the other end of the telephone. That's what they're doing. They're waking up and going, wait a minute, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. You people have seized power unlawfully. And you should be ashamed of yourselves. And they're right at the brink of, yes, war, catastrophe. Look at Syria, Damascus, Afghanistan, the riots in Egypt, the whole line of the Middle East collapsing from on up into North Africa, and it came into Egypt, and Mubarak fell in 9 weeks. Then it made its way down into through countries like Tunisia, Libya, where it stalled, and they brought Gaddafi down, and they said, well, you're done. And they said, we want it different. And it's happening all over. The Vatican is under so much siege and everything. We've just changed popes, so now we have Pope Francis. And if you're religious and you practice a religion, I would say practice it. I would say love yourselves, love it, learn what principles it shares. These are important institutions and foundations, although don't be surprised if something beyond your religion is going to reveal itself to say, you know what, these are the stepping stones and foundations. But you're now ready for something else. People are looking deeper. So they go, oops, now what? Uh-oh, you are in the collapse of your civilization. You might ask yourself, why is all this chaos happening? Where's the moral integrity, the reliability, compensation, the compassion? This is why your multidimensional time jumpers, the Pleiadians, are coming in now. You might even hear them. Anybody here have a thought and you go, where is that coming from? What is this? You don't feel like you're just kind of like getting this other input, right? And going, oh my goodness, what is this? And then 10 minutes later you go, what was that? And you don't even remember what it even was. It's so profound. That's kind of them, their field merging with yours, and some things are being encoded in you. It's waking up. You might not be able to, the immediate beta of the brain may not maintain it right away, but it is there to be drawn out later. This is why your multidimensional time jumpers are coming in now. The Ps, as I lovingly call them, think of themselves as your friends, comrades, teachers, and they are students. As we grow, they grow. Mostly they define themselves as system busters. That's where we come in. We are system busters. Shifting gears, what's ahead? Look at the various areas of life where your freedoms are being restricted. Surveillance, limitation, smart meters, cell phone towers, cameras everywhere, watching every move you make. There are higher forces that know that we're actually starting to move up into the other realms. So there'll be people that are receiving information from the other side, while the others won't have a clue, and they're denying anything is happening. Then there are others misappropriating the laws of free will, and that's causing all of the other aspects to close in on you a little bit, to watch you. Don't make us so nervous, I'm going to wear that cell phone so I can tell where you were about 20 minutes ago, So we have that. The vast, you might say here that you follow along like sheep, hypnotized by the bombardment of advertising, social media, strange inherited belief systems. Big one. Like my friend David Icke says, remember who you are. Remember who you are. You're part of the way showers. You're the transition team. The vast alignment that just happened in 2012 on the 21st is one of many indications a major shift is in motion. It wasn't the exact day and said, okay, from here we're on the Mayan calendar and boom, it's all this new idea. No, it was just a passing through of a veil where this new alignment and galactic alignments that are happening each and every day are having a little more influence on you. Watch the astrological conjunctions. They impact you more than they used to. The vast alignment that just happened on this time period, what it did was the entire area of space around it is relaying a natural processes and is paving for the way to be birthed into a slightly higher expression. That's why you guys are showing up today. You guys are picking this information up and going, ooh, yeah, okay, I get it. I'm part of this committee, etc. So let's see where this happened before. This actually has happened before throughout history, but I'm just going to pick 1967. Wonderful time. Let's talk about pop culture. Hey, you remember these guys? Architects and way showers and people that influence everything from culture, decisions, music, magic, etc., came, and on this particular area in 1967, we saw the Beatles, the wonderful Fabs, as they call them. I spent a lot of time with Louise Harrison, George Harrison's sister, right? And she said, do you know that George used to say there was a prophecy actually in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, not to be confused with the Tibetan Book of the Dead, that said at the middle of the 20th century there would be 4 Darvans that would come from the West and will bring music and magic and will change the thinking of the people. And while we were all in the patriarchal system, going to our patriarchal aspect, our Bethel Church or whatever it was, all of a sudden these guys exploded on the scene and introduced us to mudras, mantras, metaphysics, cosmic consciousness. They learned many things, and when they asked John Lennon, when they got back, what were you doing in the Himalayas with this little man, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who claims that they can levitate objects, claims that they can send thought forms into the universe, and the universe can even respond to that. He said that we learned that thoughts were things, and they had the ability to travel, and that if you sent a thought form in the universe, someone or something could and might even respond to it. You all remember St. Paul, the cute one. You all remember St. John, the witty, intelligent one, the deeper one, the activist. Then there was St. George, the quiet one, the mystical one. And then there was St. Ringo. We could never figure this one out. Sorry, Ringo. And so I learned through them, 10 years later, in 1977, I learned that you could send a thought form into the universe. I was studying Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, right? I'm 21 years old. I was wearing garlands. I had my bangs. I was probably about 25 pounds thinner. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to practice this. I started learning meditation. I'd taken my dad to this center, where we learned to meditate with this guy he nicknamed the Medina. He nicknamed him Medina. I said, why isn't he the Medina? He says, well, that's kind of a spiritual name. I don't know, it sounds good. It's kind of like Maharishi, this is the Medina. Okay. So we learned that you could send thought forms in the universe and someone could hear that. So on December 26th, I lit a candle on the outside our house in the crystalline, beautiful snow-covered mountains of Lake Tahoe, right on the border of California where it meets Nevada. And I just literally lit a candle, and I could see a million stars. Right after a good fresh snow and no moon, you cannot believe what is surrounding us. Trillions of stars. It was a perfect night, and maybe it was a night where the alignment was just right. And I didn't know it. I was 21 years old. How would I know about those things? So I just held out my hand and I just said, I'm here. I'm an Earth person. Robert here. Perala. Hello. It's kind of quiet out there tonight. And if there's anyone out there, I would like to meet with you. And if I would meet with you, then I would exchange with you. And I will use it for selflessness or service. I will share with the people that there is more to us than just us. And that we're not alone. Well, think of me as your little servant or something, I'll do the best I can. How does that sound? Good enough? Hello? Candle's still going. Oh, nothing tonight. And that was it. And I went literally inside this cabin that we were staying at. I was the only one that slept downstairs. And nothing happened. And about 2:30 in the morning, all of a sudden, I was startled awake by a shrill that was deafening, and all of a sudden, the whole inside of the house became lit up like just in blue, white, green, purple, pink indigos, and suddenly it sounded like a freight train was going through the living room, and I screamed, ah! And I just looked up, and all of a sudden, the ceiling opened up, and all of a sudden, I see what comes down, what looks like 3 8.5-foot tall cosmonauts of some kind. Now, what you see here is an actual photograph of it. I didn't take this photograph. I'll explain where it came from in a minute. It was taken in 1973. This would be many years before my encounter with it. What you don't see here is the incredible arcing of lightning that was coming off of whatever this was. The suit itself seemed to be alive. The little, that little dot right there, that thing there, that's an orange antenna that goes right there. It's about as thick as my thumb. It's about 7 inches tall, and it glowed brilliant orange, and it just emanated a brilliant orange. This is a visor. I saw no faces. This is a shoulder, arms, torso, legs, and he almost had like mittens. And the suit itself seemed to be alive. And 3 of them beamed into the living room. And all of a sudden I was screaming and then suddenly frozen encased, in suspended animation, looking forward, and I couldn't move anything in my body. Suddenly it was like they had a complete hold on me. And all of a sudden all I could hear was my voice, which sounded real tiny, way back here now. It sounded like my voice was in another room. Help me. And there was nothing I could do about my body. And I thought, I didn't know what this was. And all of a sudden, the whole side of the house started to open up in a swirling motion. You know Jodie Foster in the movie Contact? When she goes through the wormhole and she says, I'm okay to go. I'm okay to go. And all of a sudden, the floor is opening up. It's swirling. All of a sudden, she just dives down into this wormhole at 1,000 miles an hour. All of a sudden, it's just going through a wormhole. It was very accurate to that. When I saw the movie, I had to go back the next night and see it again because I said, that happened to me. That happened to me. That's what it looks like. It's very accurate. They did their homework. The Robert Zemeckis film. Don't miss it. And all of a sudden, I was interfaced with a glass object, And all of a sudden, I was held in this blue bubble. I had no control. I didn't say, gee, I shouldn't be doing these kind of experiments. This is a really bad idea. Nothing like that. And suddenly, I don't know what happened. I can't say I didn't go through any alien autopsy. God, I hope not, anyway. I don't remember anything like that. And then suddenly I was hurling through this tunnel. Now, it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't like, there's the light. Jesus, is that you? No, you're screaming for your life. I was burning. I'm on fire. You know, they say religious institutions talk about Moses and the burning bush. You know what? The only burning bush I saw was me. I was on fire. You know, and I'm screaming for my life and everything. And all of a sudden, I'm back hovering above the bed like this. And I'm lowered down on the bed and felt like a million needles just holding me there. And my voice going, help me, help me. And all of a sudden, I'm lowered down onto the bed and everything. And then all of a sudden, everything went up through the ceiling and just went whoop. And everything's quiet again. And there's nothing. Nothing at all. And I lied there in a state of shock. And all of a sudden I went, and I threw up all over the side of the bed. And I lay there in a state of shock for more than an hour, I'm sure. And I just, I remember just looking around thinking, that's not coming back, is it? I looked at the solid wall and I thought, that better stay solid. I don't want to go through that, whatever that was. I don't want to see those things. I didn't know about any experiment or calling out to the universe until 1992. That'd be 15 years later when it was recovered under hypnosis. I didn't know I called out to the universe. I didn't know anything about it. And all of a sudden, eventually I crawled out of the bed. I made myself up to the vanity mirror, pulled myself up, looked in the mirror, turned on the light, and I was startled by the incredible sunburn that I had. I was soaked in like an oil-like material. I had 2 black eyes. My hair was matted back. And I barfed all over myself. And I just thought, is this what insanity feels like? I thought, maybe I took some LSD or something. Maybe somebody put a whole bunch of LSD in, I mean, what is this? And so there, I eventually went back to bed. I eventually made my way back, and when I got back, I just moved into a little apartment for the first time ever. I'm living alone. At 21 years old, I was a latecomer, sorry. I had a roommate before, but I was a latecomer. And I moved into this apartment. All of a sudden, I closed the door, and I thought, I'm alone with this. I thought, I'm not telling anybody. Nobody's going to believe this. I go, what is this? I think this is some kind of like, maybe they're angels. Maybe angels come in spacesuits. Maybe that's what this is. That's why we said in Chapter 1 of Divine Blueprint, that's why we called Chapter 1 Angels in Spacesuits. Because I thought, well, that must be the way that it is then. They come in spacesuits somehow. And they somehow, the burning bush is like the people they take. That's a metaphor of some kind. And so they come in many different forms. They had the ability to appear and disappear at will. We later learned throughout the years and through different intuitive readings that they keep mentioning the word Arcturans, some kind of Arcturan scientist. And eventually, from 1992 on, a few people who didn't know each other, who were all intuitive counselors or psychics, said, you called these people. Somehow you called these people? And then there was a woman that looked at me, and I'll never forget it. When you're 21 years old, it's really startling when somebody looks at you and says, Robert, I'm going to tell you something here. These people are related to you. Excuse me? These people are related to you. Who put you up to this? Who are you people? Why do you do this? She goes, that's what it is. That's what it's all about. There's a kinship or an ancestry. They know who you are. And they took you for a while, and then you eventually will show other people what this is about. I'm like, you're kidding me, really? Come on, man. Come on, man. My sister does the same thing. She says, come on, Robert, man. Come on, man. What's it all about, man? First it was like, UFOs, and then it was raising the dead and trying to bring Dad back. Then it's now tapping into this divine intelligence and all this kind of stuff. You're scaring the family! I go, I'm an explorer. I'm trying to be like one of the first out of here, because I can't stand this place. She goes, yeah, well, that's about right. Can't you be normal? Can't you be like the rest of us? You know, why do you have to do all this stuff? Why do you go to all these meetings? Why do you talk to these people about this stuff? Don't you think that that's kind of freaked out? Aren't you worried like some minister will come up to you and like, you know, set you straight and you just join the rest of the crowd and be normal like the rest of us? I said, that's the whole thing. You're all following what everyone else is saying or whatever. You're not exploring. You're not asking deep enough questions. UFOs. You might be surprised to find out that your visitors are more interesting than you thought. The pilots that are coming here are Orion pilots, and they are primarily Pleiadian pilots. Those are the big ones that are here. They're the ones that are always sort of, you know, taking DNA samples, and they're taking hair follicle samples. And as we grow, they grow. We didn't get here and say this is going to be an isolated experience and everything, and we're not going to share. You know, I know a lot of people live, I know a lot of marriages like that. I'm not sharing, but I'm your wife. I'm not sharing. You know, get a job. You know, sorry. No, we're a shared experience. These pilots are coming here every day, and they're monitoring the grid systems, the incoming karmic-bound souls. If you could see the incoming karmic-bound souls that are coming here, you would see there are little tiny sparks that are coming down here to be born. And then there's little tiny sparks leaving the planet who've just finished their incarnation. And they sort of, it's actually like a freeway all day long. But you're in this moment. That's the only moment you can have. This moment is your moment. So you don't see the big picture of all the ones that are just leaving, like mass harvests, such as in 2005 when they reported there were strain lights over the ocean. They didn't know what it was. And 3 days later, there was a tsunami so big, it took 250,000 souls in one swift wave. And took them all. While it looks terrible on this side, it's actually planned. It's actually part of the experience. That's a mass harvest where those souls all go, we're going to go. And they went in a very, very quick manner. And they wake up in the most interesting places, trust me. Mom, you're not supposed to be here. You're dead. They said, so are you, sweetheart. Only there is no death. That's down there. We're here now. We're just in the moment. Life is eternal. You're just going to be you, whoever you are. If suddenly you step on a landmine and there's no more Alice, you're all of a sudden going to hear this voice going, did anybody hear anything? Did you see something? Did you hear something? That's weird. And then you don't even know what's even happened. You're just hearing your own mind's voice because you're still intact. Look at your dreams. You still have all the things in your dream are still the same way, right? If you fear water in the material world, you carry that in your dream and you go, oh, I'm afraid of water. Or you have the same sort of fears, attributes, humor. You're you. You're where you are. You're just accustomed to this material suit that we're wearing all day long and think, well, this is it. You know, I might as well dress nicely, you know, since I'm going to be around with you guys. We have all kinds of crafts that are visiting here. And we see them in the most interesting ways. They appear and disappear at will. A lot of them are there and bleed through. They're just sort of bleeding through as they're sort of monitoring what's going on here. Some people have out-of-body experiences and can be in a craft very much like that. We don't know where this comes from. We have crafts like this. We have all kinds of photos. There's photos everywhere. YouTube is just blowing apart with all kinds of UFO photos and photos of people who claim they've been a part of a spacecraft, etc. You know, and we have all kinds of crafts like this. Sorry that it's not so much clarity in the LCD projector, but this is basically what we're seeing a lot. A lot of them are saucer-shaped crafts, etc. And yes, they speak English, believe it or not. Yes, they would speak the same form of communication that we would, you know. That's not to say that they don't appear in Mexico and go, ¿Qué esto bonito? Que lunes, vaya con Dios, you know, and everything. I can just see an ET with a sombrero, kind of, you know, anything's possible, right? So let's take a look at the extraterrestrial report. These pilots that are coming here in their luminous, beautiful crafts spend a tireless amount of time actually watching people sleeping. And they take people in their sleep. The rare abductions are when they take you physically, and all of a sudden you wake up and there's like some scoop marks or something like that, or you may have an implant or what have you. I know there's a few people here like you who have implants. I know people have said this big lump on the back of my neck, there's been reported that I wear an implant. Implants aren't so dangerous, they're not so bad. Many people are tagged, millions, they're in the millions, and they're more or less like a form of tagging you to see your habitat, your choices. Like we tag animals in the forest. They too also do the same thing. And so when they're coming here and they're trying to understand your emotional body, your relationship with yourself and how you perceive, they actually live through you to a large degree. That's not to say that they always have your best interest at heart. That's not completely true. Some do not understand the range of emotions the way we have them and might be intrusive, sort of intentionally or indirectly. But for the most part, the ability to transcend the unbelievable, incredible distance to get here is evident that they have benefited from greater time and greater knowledge. There is a way to see that they are very, very intelligent, and in our crop circles, we find that scientists, there's some great people out here, Barbara Lamb, Jeff Wilson's a real good one out there in Ohio. There's so many. Colin Andrews and I led a trip to England, and we were learning more about crop circles, that the way to tell a real one from a fake one is they do emanate a frequency. And interestingly enough, that if there is a barley field or wheat field, say in the UK or whatever, and they go and examine the crop circle, what they're interested in is to see how it was real. How did they get the stalks of the barley or the wheat to cooperate and suddenly go, when they're standing straight up in a field, to bend down and then go to the right or go to the left? Now, if you take a piece of celery or a piece of barley and you break it, there's a fissure point, is there not? And then you can say, well, somebody did this and they were out here, with a board and a chain late at night, like Doug and Dave, making this wonderful symbol and say, look, E.T.'s been here. But actually, they want to know whatever did this has a fantastic amount of intelligence and got Mother Nature to actually cooperate. So it had respect for the most minute form of life form. Here they're trying to tell us something about our alignment. They were very intelligent to point out that perhaps Planet X is coming into our aspect. A la people like Zachariah Sitchin and others claim that the 12th planet is now moving in position. That's for another lecture, but it remains to be seen. But that is evident that there's a greater influence moving into the material plane. Such as here, we also see the inner orbit, lunar orbit rather, near Earth, the bright comet entering our solar system. So what are they trying to tell us? Maybe it's just this simple, and I'm only going to just throw this out. Maybe they're just trying to get you used to the idea. The Bible says in the last days, before the return of the spiritual hierarchy that will walk with mankind, when the angels return and the dead will rise, it's metaphorical, that there will be signs on the earth and signs in the sky. And so we see this happening. We see the astrological aspect, and we see this alignment that was coming our way. And the alignment of the 21st of 2012 is under speculation. It was not a perfect alignment. I know they will say, well, the planets all aligned up, and then they'll open up the portal, and then the paradigm will change and everything. And then a lot of people are out there and going, I'm waiting. Hello. And nothing happened. Well, it wasn't a perfect alignment. It's more complicated than that. The best people in astrophysics, cosmology, astrology, astrophysics still have a lot of argument and conjecture about what this really represents. But we see actually that there is some kind of alignment, and yes, we are heading towards what they call the galactic center. The galactic center represents our experience as reaching a truth. And as we go closer to that galactic center, it tends to open us up to a greater access of these visitors, so-called visitors, etc. We see many other things, such as the poles starting to shift, the south and magnetic poles of north and south, both on the on both sides of the planet. And the planet is actually going into a wobble. It's actually not even rotating, around the sun in the same way. We've actually got a wobble in the planet. This is why we have a lot of seismic activity. And our Earth is changing. We see all these sinkholes that are popping up, and we see the tides coming in at unusual times. Sorry we missed winter this year. I'm so sorry we had no rain almost. And in Europe, we got reports every day from our daughter, Tanith, that it was snowing where it shouldn't snow, and it's raining all day long, and then it's snowing again. And we said, we're down at the beach. I don't know. Sorry. And so the weather patterns are all changing because the Earth is getting ready to be birthed into a slightly larger expression. Now, somewhere we're here. Don't ask me where. We're somewhere here. And we are part of this vast cosmos, and the cosmos is opening up. And it does have an effect on us, mostly in the heart center, I believe. And this is why I'm very, very adamant about telling people, focus on your heart center. Focus with both hands, if you can. I'm learning this just recently about lovingness and forgiveness, affirmative prayer, conscious breathing, and love yourself every day. Love and forgive everyone else, and learn to sit still. Learn to sit still, because the material plane will tear you apart with all of this other external stuff you don't really need. You need to hold yourself, love yourself. We could go on all day about that. The Pleiades. You know, a lot of people say, well, this is what the Bible refers to as the seven sisters. And then there's conjecture about how many central suns there are in the Pleiades. In this one, we show actually 9. And of course, you'll notice Era is missing, which I thought was very interesting. Why the main one? I'm not sure. This is just this particular slide. But we see Atlas and Alcyone, Merope, Electra, Maya, Tegeta, etc. And our visitors are largely coming out of this aspect, and they are the ones that are, I feel, the primary ones that are spending time with us and visiting us and sharing with us. You would hear them on the sort of subconscious plane, right? Okay, let's start to wrap our presentation, because I want to be respectful for the other speaker, and I know that you guys have given me a really nice amount of time to explain some of these metaphysical and spiritual principles. Let's take a look at what just happened. We just blasted out at 2012. Everybody was going, well, what's going to happen when we reach the end of 2012? Well, actually, 2012, 2013, 14 through 17 are going to be probably the main window where we're going to see the vast amount of changes that are either going to thrust us forward, or we're going to see something else that isn't quite as pleasant, because we are teetering on this. You have learned that everything in existence is connected to an interactive web, which we call the web of existence. This is all around us. You can feel it even if you go like this. You feel the molecules throwing through your hands. Ancient seers and timekeepers have had a deep affinity for studying the stellar aspect of life and the planetary cycles contained within a large-scale plan. Yes, there is a plan somewhat. We're trying to determine that. These cycles are what the Pleiadians call the nanosecond. This is a little speck in time, that little speck in time in a 25-year period. It would be like living 1,000 years in this last 25 years. So we see this speeding up of absolutely everything. Ancient cultures foresaw the nanosecond in a 25-year period beginning from the harmonic convergence in 1987 through the winter solstice of 2012. The nanoseconds would show us the way out of the prevailing state of self-imposed ignorance and confusion as we approach the new age of enlightenment. The harmonic convergence was a huge shift for us in October of 87. So it was very much like 1967 in the summer. In October of 1987, we were reaching another alignment that all of a sudden from this point, we will no longer be the same. The vast array of things like the internet started to arrive. The first blueprints for a vehicle that would even land itself on Mars, which is now there, called Curiosity, was all beginning in this period. This period of extraordinary acceleration of energy. It'd be like living 1,000 years in a mere 25. All humanity is given a powerful choice at this time. You are asked to be the way-showers, the transition team, the one who makes the difference. The first phase of this alignment in 1987 to 1996 began a fantastic increase in energy and thrust us deep now into what we call the information age. And that information and cosmic codices and cosmic internet is becoming more active every day. Think of it like the Matrix, right? You can either swallow the red pill or the blue pill. However, the matrix is there, and you're seeing one side of the matrix in the material world as the social media begins to distract you. But the other matrix is the one you can access actually with your heart sitting still, meditating, and tuning in to what your soul's purpose hopefully is. Suddenly the entire globe was aligned in communication with itself as never before via our vast array and knowledge via the internet. If you really looked at how fast that speeded up everything, and the knowledge mounts on the knowledge, and that knowledge mounts on that knowledge, and on and on. Now everything's at your fingertips. Now they can't stop. Suppression of human will, free will, can't be stopped, because now information is coming out every day on Facebook. You got guys like David Icke out there, whistleblowers, Carrie Castillo, who knows, there's so many of us out there, they go, you're blowing a whistle and everything. That's right, honey bun, I'm blowing a whistle. We're stopping this game the way we've played it. We're trying to inform you of what's available. And the acceleration of information added to new technologies, conscious modalities, and new directions as never before. The second phase of the nanosecond. The second phase began in 1997, really not that long ago. In fact, I thought, I tell you, do you ever feel like, time is speeding up so fast? If I thought my life was going to go by this fast, I think I'd want my money back. My goodness. During this time, billions of people will begin to realize that nothing is exactly as it appears. Lines will be drawn and polarizations will arise all over the world as both sides that serve or take away from the light will take a stand on their beliefs in heated debates over freedom. What serves creation, what takes away from creation. What serves the self, what takes away from the self. What serves you, what takes away from you, etc. All the while, no one is completely sure exactly what is going on. Is that right? You feel like, what is going on here? And every day, we're going, well, we have to show up at conferences like this. So we can ask ourselves, gee whiz, I need to know what's happening here. I better go to something. So we all join together like a family to find this out. The third phase of the nanosecond begins from 2007 to 2012 and begins the third and most interesting phase into humanity's leap into the new age of enlightenment. The last 5 years of the nanosecond are unpredictable in terms of how you will respond to the energies of truth that are being beamed into your atmosphere. Think of it like this. It's not just the conjunctions. Extraterrestrials are actually beaming ideas into the atmosphere. They're massaging their atmosphere. They're actually coercing the souls. Meanwhile, there's also a darker aspect here that is doing this. This darker aspect wants to take you away from the axis of that cosmic internet and leave you hypnotized by, yes, more violence on television. Or socialized violence is the accepted norm, which is very common. So they'll bombard you with things that are depressing, distracting, immobilizing even, encouraging you. Have you had your pills today? Have you had your TV today? Have you had your dose of countless worthless information that leaves you helpless and saying, help me, I don't want any more of this. And yet you go and eat it some more. How many people are here for GMO food? Hey, let's have some GMO processed food, and you don't feel so great, and then all of a sudden your cells don't operate? You have a choice. This phase of 2000 to 2012, the last 5 years of the nanosecond are unpredictable in terms of how you will respond to the energies of truth that are being beamed into your atmosphere. Conflicts will arise and humanity will be forced to make quick decisions to ensure safe passage. Is that not the truth everywhere you look? The governments that are working with the international and domestic community are frantically trying to negotiate with these people that have nuclear weapons. They're fantastic. They're trying to maintain the very sensitive balance of the economy and everything, because they know if they take away our form of exchange or our form of exchange collapses, the emotional outbreak will be horrendous, as we've seen in Greece, Syria, the sanctions in Iran, North Korea being brought to its knees through sanctions because they have an idea that they want to control the world with this nuclear power, etc. And yet the rest of the UN and international community put sanctions on them and say, no, you either dismantle this stuff or we're going to starve you out. And many North Koreans are living in starvation and everything because countries can't trade with them. It's illegal in the United Nations to trade with North Korea, a rogue country like this. I'm sorry, if I had a 28-year-old that was leading a nuclear development program to that degree, can you please put down your Game Boy before you do that? I mean, come on. he's very immature. I'm sorry, Kim Jong-un. Okay, shoot me dead, whatever. But on other hands, Iran is the same thing. Ahmadinejad is just getting ready to leave power. The world is trying to find its safe passage into the future for our children. All the while, now, finally, in conclusion, disclosure is right happening in the midst of us. It is not something that is going to happen to you one day, and finally the jig is up, the game is up, and the government steps forward and says, look, I don't know, they were holding back the information. I'm here to tell you that there's extraterrestrials. I'm sorry, I just said it. There's extraterrestrials, I'm so sorry. Yes, I tried to tell them, you better tell them, because they're on the internet every day. They're on the internet, they know, you can't hide this and everything, And so disclosure actually happens in a number of different ways. One of the most popular ways is that you wake up as though you've woken from a dream and you get it. You just get it. It's okay. This is okay. It's like we passed through this window many times before, where suddenly our belief system just changed. We don't even know how we got there. The race riots in the mid-'60s, suddenly we said, we're not having segregated bathrooms. What is it? These are people. The gay movement, let's let them be married if they want to marry. Who are we to put our laws on these people that want to share a union or togetherness? They're God's beautiful children. So all these systems are collapsing because people are having access to a deeper intrinsic truth that is now permeating your field. This cosmic internet is loaded with these beings that are actually feeding you information. I see a big smile there. Yes, I agree. It's feeding you information every day. So we're seeing the collapse of the situation, and now this team is now just getting ready, like the rest of us, to be birthed into a slightly higher expression. It's a very exciting time, a very exciting time. I brought some books. I sold thousands. I was very fortunate. I was one of the lucky guys in the big wave when bookstores were all still going. We sold literally thousands of this book, Divine Blueprint, and then when they went out of business, they send them back to us. I have them for $5 here today for you. Enjoy it. This is a great book. Still one of Amazon's favorites. Great reviews. You can take this information home with you. But let me conclude by saying this. It's a tremendous honor, a fantastic honor to be able to come out here and share this information with you. And you guys really made my Easter. Because Easter is really, the metaphor and symbology of it is the resurrection. And that's restoring one another. That's where we raise up and realize that those parts that don't serve us, those dead parts of us that don't serve us, the dead parts of the things that are available to us, that are bombarded to us, that don't serve us, such as things you see in the media or old belief systems that no longer serve us, are dying away. And as they die away, this new self emerges. And that's what this portal of ascension is really all about. That's what they were trying to do here today, to bring you this experience, is that portal of ascension is that portion within you that raises up in ascending, to mean ascend, is to move up and forward away from the denser self, the harsher self, the self that hurts, the self that has trouble forgiving or moving away from old habits that don't serve. Again, I'm just going to say this. If you knew who walked beside you, you would be amazed, and it would bring tears to your eyes. Because that team that walks beside you deserves a tremendous amount of credit, and I get to walk with these people as you do. Maybe I just talk to them a little more, and maybe you do too. But I will say this, that this team is wonderful that's walking with you. God is very alive, very real, very much a part of your life, and is trying to lift you and the planet into a higher expression where you can be the way showers, the transition teams, the ones who make the difference. Namaste. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend. Namaste.
Robert, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here, and the energy and information you bring is so valuable for all of us. Thank you. Well, we are perfectly on schedule, divine timing, as it were. Love that dog. It is 1 o'clock now. We're going to take an hour for our lunch, and then we will be back here in 1 hour for Cynthia Crawford. We'll see you back here.